What's up, guys? This is Natalie with Video Game Design at EdAlliance on Wednesday, March 25th. I'm going to hang out here for just a minute and let folks roll on in. Hey, Dan, I see you're already there in the chat. I'm going to get started in just a few minutes. I do want to let people um, have a few minutes to get here, get the window open and everything. So I'll start maybe at 5 after 4. But today the focus is going to be on getting a Unity project set up and getting ready to start working on a game for our game making challenge, which is, of course, on the theme of Never Alone. So if you happen to be in the chat, definitely give me a wave. Let me know you're here. Hopefully, I'll see some folks rolling in here in the next few minutes. It would be great to chat with you guys. So don't hesitate to say hi if you're rolling in, and we'll get started. Maybe at 5 after 4. We'll see how long it takes other folks to show up today. So. I was just actually getting ready for this, and I was looking on the asset store for some fun free assets we might all use to work on these game prototypes. Um, Maybe I'll check some of those out while we're waiting before we get started. And Dan, I know you're there. I saw you in the chat. So if you're interested in contributing to this, I think we're at the stage now where we'll soon be sharing around our favorite assets and just thinking about what would be fun to play with for this round of game development. So I'm going to hop on the asset store myself. What I was actually thinking about was using some city assets for a prototype surrounding a delivery game. And, just thinking about like what kind of city assets would be exciting and fun to play with. There we go. Yeah. You'll find this funny. Anybody is here from EdAlliance who's done our introductory curriculum. I was searching the free assets for city stuff, and I found something that looks very familiar in this set of assets, as it turns out. Yes, we've all seen this, have we not? I was like, oh my gosh, it's the VR game. They just took this platform and stretched it way out. Oh man, I love it. It's so funny to see a game that you've spent so much time with just sort of randomly sitting there in the asset store. But I mean, that's the really cool thing about seeing that prototype actually is um you can take something like this and turn it into something really fun. It just takes a fair amount of effort. Even now we probably could still work on that VR game. So I thought that was funny. I wouldn't recommend using this for any of our projects because I don't think a sci-fi setting really fits the theme today. Um, there's a lot of city stuff though. If you have any recommendations, feel free to throw them in the chat, things you've used in the past, just, anything you might like. I like these Japanese ones, although I think we're trying to make something more towards American life. Let's see here. This looks a lot like the one they actually used for Pizza Crash. That is very simple. Maybe too simple. Hmm. That's pretty low poly. It's like circles and squares for trees, but it would get the job done. Great. Yeah, I see, Dan, you're putting in some vehicles in there. That's fantastic. I would love to see a variety of vehicles going on in these games if people decide to do a delivery game. Super fun. Um, I'm going to show you guys how to get a vehicle asset loaded in. Hello, hello. See folks rolling in the chat. Good to see you guys. Again, if you just joined, we're just looking at some assets here before I get started. I did want to make sure everybody had a chance to get in before I started talking about the topic for today. So nothing really kicked off quite yet, although I think I might get started here since it is about 5 after 4. And if anybody's late, they can just watch the video on our YouTube channel after this is done, or just try to figure it out. Just try to figure it out. So, um, yeah. So obviously today the point is to get everyone set up and rolling on a new Unity project and thinking about the game project you want to do. I heard from a few folks, which is fantastic. Thank you so much for emailing me if you did. If you are watching today and you haven't emailed me yet, please reach out. I am here to talk to you about this project, and I need to know if you're committed and you want to make a game. Once again, the theme for our online game making challenge is Alone Together, and that's due April 30th. So you have a little bit more than a month to work on your game for this challenge, and the kind of game you make is up to you. It's an open slate as long as it fits the theme. So that's Unity, that's GameStar, Mechanic, whatever platform you want to use, make something that fits the theme. But today I'm going to make sure everybody's good to go on getting Unity set up and creating a new project. So if you're, if you already have Unity installed, that's great. If you do not, I would love to show you how to do that. So if you're watching right now, just maybe if you could comment in the chat about whether or not you have Unity installed already. If anyone says they don't have it installed yet, I'll let you guys know how to do that right here on the video. But if most folks are on the right track with getting the Unity install done, I will move forward into showing how to create a new project. And again, if nobody comments, you guys are just watching, that's fine. I'll go through the process of installing Unity. It doesn't take very long. So just let me know either way in the next minute or so, and then we'll go forward. Awesome. So I'm seeing at least one person got Unity installed yesterday. Awesome. Any issues, just let me know, but it's fairly straightforward. So it sounds like at least one person did not have any problems with that. Fantastic. So if you do want to know how to install it, I actually have detailed instructions that I can send you guys. I sent them out to the folks that touched base with me on email, and I can forward those to anyone else who's interested. So again, if you haven't emailed me yet about doing the project, send me a message and I will definitely email you the instructions for getting the install done and confirm that you're good to go on working on a project for this challenge. But since I don't hear from anybody saying they didn't get Unity running, I think I'll go ahead and just talk about getting set up to do a new project. So I'm going to open Unity Hub here and we'll start from there. So I've got Unity Hub open here, and yours probably has less projects in it than mine. I'm probably someone with more Unity projects in their Unity Hub than anyone because I'm connected with so many student projects. But, if you want to make a new project, the first step is, of course, you need to be logged in using your Unity account. So once you've got this all installed and ready to go, you should, of course, be able to click over here on installs. You'll probably have one. I have more than one, but hopefully you have this 2019.1.2 here. And then clicking back in projects, you should also see your name, your initials in the upper right-hand corner. So if you were to click there in the upper right-hand corner, you would see your initials and your username. I'm going to go down here and click refresh, which is sometimes coming up. Any messages that come up in Unity Hub, you can just click through them. So Normally in our game studios at EdAlliance, we create a project for you and then we invite you to the project so you can download it and then start working on it because we often provide things for you. But for this one, you are going to make it yourself. So it's pretty straightforward. Initially, you can go to New. If you happen to have multiple Unity versions on your computer, clicking this arrow is going to allow you to select the version you use when you create the new project. 2019.1.2 is our studio standard version. So I'm going to click on that one, and that's going to let me open this new project creation window. If you only have one version on your computer, then you can just click on new and it'll automatically create your project with that version. So this is going to pop up. You'll select 3D, name your project. I'm going to call this example project 3. And then I'll save it here in my make room folder. And we'll let that grind away a bit as the project opens. So of course, this is really all it takes to create a blank Unity project. It's going to look exactly like what you're familiar with. You'll have a sample scene that has a few basic game objects in it with nothing else besides a camera, the directional light. You will have to add all of the details into that scene and create additional scenes if you need them. But the important thing I'm going to talk about here when this is done setting up is how to log your Unity project into Collab and add Dan and I to your project. That's going to be so helpful because if you get snagged on something, Dan or I can pull your project and see if we can help fix what's wrong. So here's Unity loaded up in my blank project. Everything's looking the way I expect. I can move the game back up here, which is commonly where it's located. I've got my project window, all the things we normally do in Unity, and nothing here in the scene until I start adding things on my own. So if I want to start collaborating with someone on this and create it to be a project that's available to someone else to download, I can click up here on the collab button, which has a gray check mark on it. And I'm going to click start now, which will open the services behind this. I need to click anywhere in this rectangle again to get it to go away. And then I can select my organization here. So I've got a lot of options on mine, but the organization associated with my Unity account is the one I want to use. You'll maybe have one, maybe Make Room is an option for you because I've added you to a project in Make Room in the past. But just use your own Unity organization. You have 2 free guest spots that come with your Unity account, so you'll be able to add both Dan and I as guests in your account. So you'll click create and then some progress is going to happen here. Now this exists as a project for Collaborate. What you can do now is clicking here and again clicking start now will this time give you the ability to push your changes. There's our blue arrow. We're so familiar with that. I'm going to type initial commit because I'm basically putting in nothing, and I'm going to click publish now. All right. So that's step 1. That means it's been checked into the Unity cloud. Step 2 would be to add someone else to your project in the Unity login on the web. So for this second half, you're going to go to a browser. I already have the Unity website open right here, and I need to log in as me. So I click up here on the circle in the upper right. I'm going to go sign in. I've got my password cached, so it automatically signs me in. Thank you, Chrome. So I'm logged in as Natalie now, and I'm going to click here. I can go to organizations, and select my personal Unity organization here, the one I checked the project in under, which if you recall from a few seconds ago, that was Natalie Messnard. So I click here, and happily, this is not my current address. So if you're considering showing up at my house, you could go to that address, but I will not be there. um, so here I am in my organization. I've got one owner, which is me, and 2 guests that come with my account. And then here at the top, I can click on projects. This is actually going to take me to all of the projects I have in Unity. Not just, I don't know why it took me there. I'm going to go to all projects. There we go. Yeah, this is what you should see when you click on projects. I have everything here. And the one I just created is called Example Project 3. So I'm going to click on that. And if I've checked in my changes, I should be able to see this. If it doesn't show up, make sure you're typing the name in correctly. Otherwise, you may still need to push your initial commit of a blank project before it's going to show up here online. But mine's here, and I'm going to click on Example Project 3. And then to add a new user to this, I can click on Settings and Users. So I've got the opportunity here to type in someone's email address. For starters, if you wanted to add me, you would just use my Eline Media account, which is nmessnard@elinemedia.com. Once you type that email address in, it's going to let you add me to the project. So I'll click there, see what that does. Oop, I clicked on that twice. Let's revoke this one. There we go. And that has emailed me at that email address, asking me if I want to join the organization. So you can do that with my email address once you've got your project checked in, and I will be able to pull your project and check what you're doing. I'm going to revoke this just because obviously I don't need to invite myself, but that's how you would do it for me. And we'll make it so you can add Dan as well. I'll need to get the email address Dan wants to use for this before I share it on a broadcast. But that's going to be your route to collaborating with your instructors during this game making challenge. And if you guys have questions about that, definitely let me know, because this can be a little finicky and I've had problems with it in the past. So now is definitely the time to get any IT concerns resolved before we start doing game development. So yeah, if you happen to be following along, and you have questions, toss those in the chat before the end of the broadcast. I see Dan's putting in the chat his email address. That's there for you to add him to your project as well. So please do that. Fantastic, Dan. Thank you so much for providing that. If you do want to collaborate with someone other than Dan or I, you'll have to kick one of us out of your organization, and we can show you how to do that as well. But absolutely key to get us collaborating on your project. Okay, so if there aren't any questions or comments on this very sort of utilitarian aspect of setting up a project, I'm going to go forward. I wanted to show you guys some basic stuff that's available from Unity that I thought would provide a great basis for setting up a prototype for this game project. So if you recall, we were talking about three options of mechanics you could use to build a game inspired by the theme of Alone Together. And we looked at Pizza Crash, which is a pickup and delivery game. We looked at My Doll's House, which is a creepy atmospheric horror piece. And then the third game was Dante's Infernia, which is a cat running around being destructive inside a house. I know, I think the person who's been commenting here in the chat is Emmy. And Emmy, if you're watching, I know that you've made a game about a cat running around in a house. So, this could be the moment to polish that up and release it. Or you might prefer, for example, to do something totally different since you've already explored what it would be like to make a game sort of with that vibe. But in any case, let me show you guys some stuff that's available for free in this Unity standard assets. So the standard assets, of course, here I'm going to maximize the asset store, are a bunch of really convenient scripts and prefabs provided by Unity for us to build games. These have been available for a while. You can just type Unity standard assets here in the Unity asset store and it'll come up. And I can't recommend them highly enough. They're just really, really nicely tuned up pieces of video games. So if you were to search standard assets, you would find this here, and it's this piece that has it looks like it has like little pieces of spaceships, like an old school model. It says a purchase because I've already downloaded it. It does not cost money. It just says that because if you've downloaded something, it says purchased. So the way you would pull this into your project is you'd go to the standard assets in the Unity Asset Store, and you guys usually, I think most of you know how to download assets. You're first going to click on the import, and then once the content imports, then you'll actually download it into the sorry, you need to click download first, and then you need to click import. I've already got it downloaded as it so happens, but now I can just import it. So click download, then click import. It says import on my screen because I already have it. But I am going to import it into this project. So once you click download, import will be available. Click that. Then I see all of the options of things that are going to come in the project. I'll take everything. Might not use it all, but it's not too huge. So now I'm going to click import. And once that loads, we will have some really fun character controllers to work with. So just while this is loading, I thought I would tell you guys that right before this, I was doing a little bit of work to try to create a fairly nice player controller that works with our cat asset. So, Emmy, this would be the same cat that we used in Return of Ted. And I wanted to create a better camera rig for that character before I share it as part of this project. And darned if it isn't really hard to create a character who always runs away from the camera. That's always the thing that you want those third person character controllers to do. And I could show you guys that at the end of the broadcast. I was trying to get them to run away from the camera, and for some reason, when I push forward, it walks away from the camera. But then when I push backwards, the avatar just spins eternally in a circle. So I had a spinning cat right before I logged on Twitch. It was maddening spinning cat. But hopefully I'll get that fixed tomorrow. So we don't have a standard asset cat controller, but we do have a couple other really nice ones. Okay, so I've got the standard assets. And, part of the reason I'm showing you this on this broadcast is because the standard assets are really useful. Yeah, I'm seeing in the chat, a spinning cat is better than a glow gravity cat. Oh, the memories. Yes, yes. We had some issues with that cat's rigid body. Those have always had that issue. I was actually when I was playing with it earlier, I was clicking the jump button and it was just rising up in the air. It would like never come back down. I'm like, please use gravity. I have checked that box. Oh my gosh. So standard assets are going to be so useful to you guys. You know, when we at our game studio sit down with you guys, we already have assets loaded in the project. So you don't need necessarily to download some of the basics for setting up a game. We give you that. But now, because we're all remote and we're doing a different format where you from scratch create your game, I wanted you to know about this package you can download because it's just such a good basis for so many different projects. Um, you know, in particular, if you want to do a first person or a third person project and you don't want to spend hours dealing with stuff like what I just said, you know, the cat's like floating off into space and you're spending 6 hours figuring out why. You know, if that's frustrating to you and you want to focus on game design rather than like troubleshooting the physics of your character, this is the way to go. This is absolutely the way to go. So the standard assets have come in here. You can see all these pluses, which means when I push this, you know, those plus, all that plusy stuff is going to be pushed because it's new. And in here, we've got some 2D stuff, cameras, characters, some particle systems, some physics materials. A lot of this stuff is really great. Our environment, we've got terrain stuff and trees, and then even some really nice, just like basic shapes for building things out. So this would be, you know, we've got like a nice coin pickup here and some ramps and just different sizes of things. So really, really love using the standard assets. Okay, so here's our characters folder. And as you can see here, we've got a first person character, the rollerball, and a third person character. And what you can do with these is sort of mix and match. But first I'm going to, you know, I'm in my scene here. This is sample scene. And I'm going to click down here in the projects folder on scenes. This is the only scene in the project. Seems fine. This is just an example. If you guys wanted to create one that said level 1 or test or whatever, you can always right click in the project, go to create, and then you can click on scene, or you can duplicate a scene by clicking on it and pressing Control D. But I'm going to work in the sample scene. So I'm going to create a plane here, just a flat surface, just so we have a place to hang out. I'm going to make this a good bit bigger so I don't drive off the side immediately. And then in the characters here, let's start with the first person character. So here in the first person character, I'm always, whenever I open a thing like this, I'm going to look for the folder that says prefabs. I'm going to open that. And we've got FPS Controller and Rigid Body FPS Controller. Let's go ahead with the basic one first and just see how that functions. All right. So the absolute first thing I want to do is drag that on in and push play because I'm curious. I'm curious what that asset is going to do with my camera. So let's just see what it does here. Awesome. Look at that. I'm already functioning as a first person character right out of the box. So I hear some footsteps and I believe I'm moving forward. It's actually a little bit difficult to tell what's going on when I'm walking on a plane. But I do hear footsteps, which means not only am I moving, but also this asset comes with a really nice built-in audio setup, so I don't have to program it to make footstep sounds. And I've got some jumping sounds as well. So right away, I don't even have to set up the camera. Let's do this. I'm going to drop the game down here so I can see what I'm doing a bit. And I'm going to actually throw in a prototype. Let's just use something like this, just so I can see it and confirm, you know, am I definitely moving forward? Yes, absolutely. So Looks like my first person character works right out of the box. I don't even have to set the camera up. It's going to do it all for me. And you can see the gizmo for that moving around up there in the scene, kind of circling this guy. My jump looks pretty nice. And I'm, again, just like in any first person game, I'm using the mouse to control the camera. I've got jump and WASD are letting me control this. All I had to do was drag in that FPS controller game object out of the standard assets. So again, it's right here. There it is. I'm going to click on this in the sample scene here and just see what some of the inspector options are that are available to me. So here's the inspector for this game object, the first person controller. And I've got a script here that lets me set its walk speed, its run speed. I don't know what run step lengthen means, but that's something I could change and try to figure out. Jump speed, and then how sticky I am to the ground. That's an interesting one. It would be fun to play with changing that and seeing what would happen. Gravity multiplier, we can get a sense of what that does. And then we've got some options here. Mouse look, we can change how things work here. If I unchecked this, I think I'd be able to do a flip with the camera, which feels a little unnatural, but they give it to you as an option. And then we have some like really nice stuff here. If you notice, head bob and jump bob, they've coded this just to act really naturally here. I think there's this kind of a sense of that you're moving up and down when you're walking. So if you look at this thing, yeah, you can see there's a little bit of an up and down motion that's been programmed into the controller. That's really nice and not something I would ever work on, especially at the outset. So it's just fantastic that that comes with this asset. So a lot of stuff to play with here, stuff that you can play with. If you wanted a different jumping sound, you could add it. Let's see what else is here, if there's anything. Yeah, it looks like the rest of it is pretty straightforward. We've got its rigid body, affected by gravity. We've got a basic character controller here that seems to do some handling for non-first person specific aspects of having an avatar in a game. I would leave that stuff alone unless you know why you're changing it and focus on only changing things in the first person controller if that's what you want to do. So that's there. Really love that. And again, standard assets, characters, prefabs, that's where you're going to find the first person controller. Okay. I'm going to delete that one and show you guys how to get set up with a third person controller, the other fantastic controller that comes with the standard assets. This one comes with, there's an AI version and then an avatar version. So I'm going to use the plain one called third person controller. And this comes with a really nice 3D model of a guy that moves really and animates really naturally. So again, I've taken the first person controller out and put this guy in. There he is. We've got some different control stuff here. And now for him, I'm going to make this big so I can show you what's going on here. So I can push play here and, you know, there he is. I'm controlling him. He looks pretty good. However, the camera is not doing anything. Goodbye. So when you use a third person controller, of course, you have to figure out what kind of camera setup you want to use and get that camera connected with your avatar. So whether or not he moves is sort of fine, but what is the camera? So I'm going to get out of this and hop back in the project folder because the standard assets come with some fantastic cameras that also pretty much work out of the box. All right, so we've got our third person controller there in the scene. Let's go over to him. And cameras here in the project folder, I am going to unroll this, open the prefabs, and see what my options look like. All right. So the two most commonly used ones, at least the two that I find the most useful, are free look camera rig and multi-purpose camera rig. So let's try multi-purpose camera rig first. I'm going to drop that in there. Just drag it and drop it right in the hierarchy and it'll load in. You'll see it automatically comes with a couple different scripts attached to it. We've got AutoCam here, and then we have the option to turn on a script that protects it from clipping through walls. So in a script like this, what'll happen is when the camera collides with a wall, a script like that will teleport it to a different location to kind of help you not feel like you're suddenly inside the middle of a building looking at your character. This is always something we have to deal with because if you think about an avatar, it's dragging a camera along behind it, and sometimes it's like if you were dragging a balloon and then suddenly you rotated, that balloon might hit the wall behind you. I'm going to leave that off because we don't need it for now. And then if you see down here, if we were in class, I would say, what goes here, guys? But since we're not in class, I'll answer my own question. What goes there is, of course, the third person controller. So I'm going to drag that whole game object and drop it here. That'll automatically get that game object's transform, and the camera should follow along behind the third person controller. So let's just see what it does. I'm going to hit play here. Okay. So this could happen to you. Why isn't the camera following him? Again, if we were in class, I would leave you guys to figure it out, but I'll answer my own question. It's because there's two cameras in the scene. So we have loaded in the camera we want to use, but that is being overridden by the main camera. And I'm going to go ahead and just switch that camera off. Now I should see what the multi-purpose camera rig sees. And as you can see now, he's dragging that camera along behind him. When he turns, the camera is going to rotate to try to get behind him once again. And then this right here, this is the behavior I was desperately trying to get the cat to do, but the cat would not do. And the camera rotates behind him again. So we've got the basics here. Looks pretty good. That would be nice for a fairly linear 3D platforming level. If we turn around and run towards the camera, there are some issues with it taking a long time to get back behind him so you can see where you're sending him, where he's going. But with this camera rig, I would say, you can click on him and turn up the turn speed so that the camera moves faster. Or you can design a fairly linear level that generally doesn't require you to turn around and go backwards. Overall, it's a pretty nice camera. It does have that problem of, not always and automatically being behind the avatar. One way we might be able to solve this with these pieces is by using the free look camera rig, which should let me move the camera using the mouse. So we'll turn off multi-purpose camera. So main camera and multi-purpose camera are off now. And I'm going to drop in the free look camera rig and see what that does. So here's free look. Let's throw him right here and we'll see what happens. All right, so now I've got a little more control and he runs. The camera's going to follow him and I can look where I'm going. So this is pretty nice. See what I'm saying? Now I can sort of say, okay, I'm going to turn here and then I'm going to turn him and then I'm going to go over there. Use the mouse to turn around to follow him. Works pretty well. And in fact, what I would say is if I had to pick between this one and the other one, I would probably pick this one just because most people, when they're doing a game with a third person character, they want the camera to follow the character like it does. Here, we can make sure it's doing that. Yeah, he's pulling it. But we also want to be able to look around sometimes without having to move him. So I think this is a really nice setup myself. And, if I wanted to prototype for a game about a cat or some kind of little person knocking things over inside a house, this would actually be a great place to start. You could work with this and then retrofit the avatar to be something else once you had the setup of the environment looking nice. All right, so we've got free look camera and we've got our guy here. And then we've got the other option, which is a first person. I'm going to get out of the game for a second because I have one more for you guys. I did not forget the idea of doing a delivery game, and that is also something that you could prototype using the standard assets because the standard assets come with a car controller. It's very exciting. It's very exciting. So let's see. I'm going to take out some of these extra things. I think probably we'll want the multi-purpose for a car controller because a car is almost never going to suddenly turn around and face the camera. So just having the camera kind of follow along behind the car seems like the best approach to me. And now somewhere in here, aha, there it is. So I'm here in the standard assets folder. Whoop. I'm going to roll up cameras, roll up characters, and go down to vehicles. Here's my car folder. Prefabs. Let's make this big. Yes, there's my car. Let's toss this in and see what we get. All right. So I'm going to select it in the hierarchy here and then put the cursor in the scene and press F to focus in on it. That came in a really weird location. So I'm going to go click up here in the transform and go reset. Find it again. That's much better. So here it is. This thing looks pretty cool. I've got some options here in the inspector. Once again, looks like I can adjust all kinds of parameters having to do with the wheels. And that is because these wheels are actually acting independently of one another to propel the car forward. But fantastically enough, car user control is attached here. And I believe all I need to do to get this car running is to click on my multi-purpose camera rig and whoop, looks like the car was already in there. So it automatically found my avatar in the scene. Let's run it and see what happens. Oh, I love it. This is such a cool asset because it comes with audio and you just don't have to do anything. And I've got some turning. That's very cool. Yeah, and it's even gonna spawn some wheel effects, which is just phenomenal. Woo! Aw. And I'm gonna tell you right now that this car is already a lot easier to control than the car in that pizza crash game that's so mean to you when you die. So very cool place to start here. Yeah, it's putting those on when I back up. Just a really nice setup, and if you wanted to do something like what they had in the pizza delivery game, you might play with the camera and see if you could adjust it. Let's see if it's going to let me keep that or if it'll snap it back into the original location. Ah, yeah. So this one always wants to be hovering here, but I might be able to set some of that stuff manually in the auto cam. In any case, this would be a great place to start if you were doing a pickup and delivery game because you would already have a car. And you could say, I'm going to start building out an environment for me to pick up and deliver things using this car to kind of prototype that and see what kind of environment I want to drive my car around in. So when I found this, was super excited. If you are getting the standard assets and playing around with them, following along on this video, there's lots of fun stuff in here like that. And the best way to enjoy these assets is to drag them in your scene and see what they do. There is an aircraft, which, I didn't propose doing a game that involves an aircraft for this time, but if you want to, just play with an aircraft, then please, please enjoy that. This one's actually really fun because it flies. I'm not going to demo this because, the temptation to get distracted is strong, but the truth of the matter is I'm looking for games that fit the theme, and I at least initially can't imagine an aircraft-based game that would fit the theme, but you are more than welcome to play around with this stuff, and if it's your dream to make a game that involves flying this gorgeous standard asset airplane, then be my guest. There's so many great things you can do here. So I've showed you guys 3 player controllers. Let me actually throw them all in the scene one more time just so we can review. We have a car, and let's reset that so we get it here. We have in the characters folder, we have the first person guy. So the FPS controller, which automatically, I think is going to appropriate whatever camera's in the scene. I might need to put the main camera back in. I'm not sure how that's going to run, but no worries at this juncture. And then we also have this third person controller, the little guy. So these are your 3 options right here. The first person, the car, and the guy. And then on Monday next week, I will also give you guys a third person cat if you want to do a game about a cat inside a building. Um, I'll have the cat available for you on Monday. But if you're thinking of doing this option right now, you can just download the standard assets and prototype with the guy. And then on Monday, you'll be able to switch it out for a cat who knocks things over because I'll have that ready for you at that time. So what I'm hoping folks will do after they watch this video is download the standard assets from the asset store. Make sure you've got that going on and start to prototype your scene. So in all 3 of these games, I'm looking for one scene, right? Don't worry about doing a menu or a pause menu or any of that stuff yet. What I want you to do is develop the place where you're going to play. And so in the case of the delivery type game, that would be like a city. And in the case of the other 2 games, we're talking more about an interior environment. So you would be building the inside of a house. And what I'll be looking for is sometime next week to be able to pull your project. I want to pull your project and see that there's a scene in there that's actually built up that I can move your avatar around and play in. Okay, so we don't need mechanics to be ready yet, but what we need is we need an avatar. So you need to pick the avatar you want to use, and then we need an environment for that avatar to be in. So whether that's a city, that's an interior of a house, whether or not that's something else, I want to be able to pull your project, sit down, take the mouse, take WASD, and move around in your scene. So no crazy stuff, no bugs at this stage. It should all work. And if you're doing that and you have that ready by Monday, you will be on fantastic track to get some excellent work done on this project. On Monday, I have all kinds of plans of talking to you guys about ways of enhancing your environment. So definitely stay tuned. There will be some stuff about customizing terrain. So, of course, if you already know how to customize terrain, go to it. Some of us are experts at this, and of course, you can go create 3D terrain, and that's going to give you a whole world of ground to contour to your heart's content if you know how to do it. Of course, this is the non-tutorial version of this, but you're going to kind of paint on here with your terrain brush to kind of pull it up and push it down and so forth. raise or lower terrain is what you want. But I'll show you guys this more in detail next week. And then the other thing I'll talk about is best practices for building interiors and ways that you can make that easy on yourself. So, don't wait for me to start building a house if that's what you want to do. Don't wait for me if you want to contour your assets and contour your terrain and make that look really lovely. But I will talk you through those things on Monday. And what is this? Someone is baking lighting. Stop. We can turn that off and my computer will be much happier. Okay. Sorry for that diversion. Don't wait for me. Don't wait for me. Get what you can get done. And then on Monday, it'll be an opportunity to check in and for me to say, hey, welcome. If you're in the chat, say hi and tell me to pull your project. You can also email me and say, hey, Natalie, my project's logged in. You can pull it and I would love for you to take a look. Obviously, if you're at this stage and you are having problems with this stuff, so installing Unity, creating a new project, adding me in Collab, and getting the standard assets, those are some of the things that you should be working on getting through and having a good handle on. If you're watching this video and you're like, I already know how to do all that stuff, then I'm expecting you to make a pretty phenomenal video game and there will be no excuses for bad gameplay. So don't don't think if you're watching this video and you're like, oh, this is beginner stuff, that I am not watching you. If you're someone who is already advanced in Unity, then I'm incredibly excited because we actually have the opportunity to really jam on making fantastic projects together. And given that you have the opportunity to work solo, the cool thing here is you don't have to wait for your for your colleagues who are really learning things, and you can really say, what would be a fun game that I can make? What would be a fun game that I can make? I'm seeing the words "uh-oh" in the chat. I'm watching. But really, I want you to see this as a challenge. And for some of the more folks who are newer to Unity in our class, this is a learning experience. It does take a while to figure out how to do these things. And don't feel discouraged if you have a hard time importing the standard assets. Meanwhile, if you are an advanced game maker, this may be your first time in video game design, at least working with me, that I'm pushing you to make a game totally on your own. So there will be no other people to design UI for you. Nobody else is going to design the game system. So if you want to keep track of points or collectibles or create a win condition, it's going to be up to you to do that. And some of you guys out there, I absolutely know are capable of putting together all of that stuff. What that rests on, though, ultimately, I think, is being realistic about what you can accomplish. So one scene, right? Don't say at the outset, I'm going to design 5 levels. It's not gonna be enough time. It's absolutely not enough time between now and the end of April to do 5 levels. But you might be able to get one good one and start on a second one. That's realistic. That's more something that somebody could do given this interval and given the fact that, we have school, we have work, we have lots of stuff we have to do, and game development is here for you to work on when you have time and because you want to have fun doing it. And of course, what's waiting on the other end is the showcase, where we're going to have all of these games available to be played by whoever wants to play them. Our people, Manny Cantor Center people there, we're going to share these games. So really see this as an opportunity to put something fantastic in front of your audience. And that process of showing something fantastic starts with right now, which avatar do I want to do? What kind of gameplay am I designing? What environment do I want to make for the player to be in? Those are the decisions you need to make right now. Okay, so that is what I have for you this week. And if you have questions, comments, or ideas, you can toss them in the chat in these last few minutes of the hour. Meanwhile, if you really want to stick with the format of the class, you could spend the next hour working on game development. Get this stuff set up. I will be here online, and you can email me. Um, I will look for an email coming through to my Eline Media address to add me as a collaborator to your Unity project. I'll look for that. Um, I'll pull any changes I see come through in the next days between now and Monday. Again, if you guys have any comments or questions, now is the time to put them in the chat before I sign off. I'm really excited about this. And oh, final thing before I go, if anyone has recommendations of assets, I know Dan threw one in the chat earlier. It was some vehicles you could use. That would be a fantastic thing to share. I'll be sharing some more next week. I started the broadcast taking a look at some of the available options of things on the asset store for cities, which would be just a fun thing to play with if you're doing the delivery and pickup type game. But there was one thing, house interior. I searched for this earlier too. And of course, when you search on the asset store, you do need to click on free assets unless you want to spend money, which at this stage I wouldn't. At this stage I wouldn't. Sometimes it is worth it, especially if it's only like $5. But I wouldn't spend money until you know what you're making. So on this, I actually thought this furnished cabin would be a really fun home interior to play with for the idea of like the cat game, or this actually looks a little bit creepy as well. So if you wanted to do something um, a bit like my doll's house that involved sound effects and lighting, this is really just a rich environment that you could, I mean, it's basic, but it's free. So, we'll work with what we got. Um, just some nice little stuff in here, right? Like you could totally make this creepy by changing the lighting. And I believe, yeah, if you look at that, there's some pre-built interactions here. So you can, I believe it has a click to open function for some of the drawers and doors. That would be really cool, especially if you wanted to do horror. In fact, that's really making me want to download this right now and play it. I will say, there's one more thing here. I believe I have myself bought a fantasy library. I don't remember the name of the asset. I don't know if it's this. It's not this one. Perhaps Wizard. I don't know. I don't remember where it is. I have a packet. It's a really nice interior. It's kind of like it's like a fantasy library, so it has books in it and some kind of um, like a mage's library is the vibe. So if you're interested in doing something that has a fantasy vibe, you can reach out and I will share that package of assets with you. It's something I did buy on the asset store a while back, and I'm totally happy to share that with you guys if you wanted to do a fantasy take on this. That said, I feel like the theme for this one with Alone Together is more like real life. So, even if you're using something really low poly and cartoony, I would maybe go towards like the cabin I just showed or a city, just to evoke the feelings of isolation, togetherness, and some like wacky gameplay, sort of in that vibe of like real life for us right now in New York and New Jersey, which is, you have to admit it's gotten a little crazy, hasn't it? So anyway, lots of fun stuff to do with this. Lots of fun setup before we get into implementing mechanics. If you have questions after this video, just email them to me and I will get back to you. I'm really excited to see what you guys put together. Dan, I would love to see you make a prototype for this if you have any free time during your absolutely jam-packed schedule of being a college student as well as a working adult. But if you want to do a game, this is, an open invitation for instructors. I might try to do one myself since I'm chained inside my apartment these days. So be creative. This is really, really open to you guys to show what your style of game making is, and really, really make something exciting. So, all right, yeah, I'm seeing Dan saying he's gonna make something. I'm so excited. I mean, obviously, no pressure to instructors, and we've opened the call to folks at Eline Media as well. And of course, we know our developers at the studio in Arizona are fantastically busy, but that doesn't mean I won't put pressure on them to make wacky games in the next month for our game making prompt of never alone. So hopefully we'll have at least a good chunk of really, really funny, fun games for people to play. All right, well, that concludes this Wednesday broadcast from Eline Media Video Game Design at EdAlliance. Be in touch if you're watching this video after Wednesday. You can email me at any time during the week and I will catch up with you. Please add me as a collaborator, and you can add Dan as a collaborator on your project as well. When we see those collaboration requests come through, then we'll know you guys are at work and you're committed. So don't forget to do that. And also, don't forget to tune in on Monday, same time, 4 o'clock. It's always during regular class with the video posted on YouTube following that time. All right. That's all I have for you guys. So thank you so much for being here. If you were here for the whole hour, I hope my voice is soothing to you. And in any case, have a great rest of your week. Have a fantastic weekend. Hopefully, we'll be seeing some light at the end of the lockdown tunnel. But in the meantime, we will be making games right here. So thanks again. I will talk to you guys on the flip side.